Welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the list from November 30th, 2018, and I'm recording this on May 31st, 2019. This week's list has several first appearances on it that I think are going to continue to have value. A couple probably not so much, and a couple option news books that aren't going to go anywhere. So, without further ado, let's get into the list. Up first is Fisheye number 1. And if you're wondering what this book is or where it was, I'd forgotten to even hit the list. This book made it because of option news. And here is your friendly reminder on option news. Option news means that someone has bought the rights so that if anything is ever made from it, a TV show or a movie, they're the ones that get to do it. It doesn't mean they're actually going to make anything. And people tend to treat it as, there's going to be a show, when that's not really what option news means. This book jumped from a dollar bin book to a $15 to $20 book because of that. And now it's back to a $5 to $10 book, with sets of 1 through 4 going, issues 1 through 4 going for less than 30. So, again, one of those things. Option doesn't always mean that anything's going to come of it, and nothing has for this yet, so Fisheye is back to being, a $5 to $10 book. At number 9 on our list is our first of the first appearances, that I think is actually going to have some long-term value, and that is Ultimate Fallout number 4. We all know what this is, first appearance of Miles Morales, and we all know why this spiked in late November, and that was because in anticipation of the Spiderverse movie. That movie has come and gone. It's been a great success. There's going to be a sequel. And so then the value of 9.8 for Ultimate Fallout 4 jumped from $200 to $300. And Raws went from selling for around $50 to $60 to selling for $80 plus. And basically that's where the book is maintained since then. The movie was good. And really, I think the only reason we haven't seen even more growth out of this book is because there's just so many of them. It's so readily available that it continues to sort of suppress the value, even though now we're looking at values for 9.8s of $3 to $350 and Raw books going for $80 to $100. But given all the success this character's had, I think it's really just, luckily for anybody who doesn't have it yet, that you can still reach it because there's so many of the books available. Next at number 8 is another first appearance. It is Archie's Madhouse, number 22. And this is the first appearance of Sabrina. And this was all tied around the new Netflix show that came out last fall. I think it got pretty good reviews. I haven't actually watched it myself. But that Netflix show caused that book to spike. Not the new series and the Susan Speck, Alec, and John. Sorry. Following in the anticipation of the Netflix show, this book reached all-time highs in 3.5, 5, and 6.5 during the month of November, with a 3.5 going for $700, a 5 going for $1,250, and a 6.5 going for $19. For the most part, this book has continued to gain, although not at all grades. With the 3.5 is actually fallen back. Those are now going for $450 to $500 instead of that $700 high. But a 5.0s are now going for around 15, so they've continued to gain. And just for a comparison to see overall how this book has been gaining, even though there's some inconsistency amongst the grades, a 7.0 in April of 18 went for 1,400, which was actually a high at the time. In April of 19, a 7.0 went for 3,450, so more than double. In a calendar year, so this book has definitely continued to pick up some steam. Next on our list is another first appearance. Well, sort of. I guess technically this is a second cameo, and this is Captain Marvel number 17, the second print. So I have the first print here. The second print, of course, is the one where you actually see Kamala Khan on the cover. It is her second cameo, but the second print put her on the cover, and that is why this book is so sought after by collectors. Then a 9.8 were going for 1,500 consistently and hit a new all-time high of 1,625. The book actually has peaked at 1,900 since then, but has fallen back overall. Most recent sales are going back in that 1,550 to 1,650 range. But it's a book that definitely has a lot of value, and all the listings currently on eBay are 1,700 plus. So it's not falling back very far or for very long. Raw copies are now going for $500 to $600 with all the listings, again, over 600. The second print is fairly hard to find. This is a very popular character in some portions of the community, and this second cameo, but her first appearance on the cover, is the book for this character that people want. So that is number 7 on the list, Captain Marvel number 17, the second print. Next up at number 6 is Star's End number 1. And CBSI wasn't sure why this hit the list, what caused this book to spike, other than a lot of buzz around Antarctic Press at the time. This book jumped to $20 right off the bat, jumped to $20, but has since crashed back. There's really been no momentum with this particular story. There's no option news. There's nothing really going on with this, and this is a less than $5 book now. Basically, you most likely can find this book in the dollar bins. Currently now, people are still listing it for $10 to $20, so maybe you can't find it in dollar bins yet, but it's not selling for that. Most of the sales have been like $1 plus shipping or $2 plus shipping on eBay. Definitely less than $5. So that is Star's End number 1. At number 5 on the list is another cameo first appearance, and that is Hawkeye versus Deadpool number 0. And this is sort of the controversial cameo of Spider-Gwen and Lady Thor, or Jane Foster Thor. And you see them as kind of cosplayers in the background, or people cosplaying as those characters in the background. And that is, so there's been some debate about whether or not this is truly a first appearance or what, but it is their costumes, so it does kind of count as a cameo. Then it was going for $25 to $30. Now the book is back. It's kind of done this a couple different times. It's picked up some steam, got a little value, and dropped back. It's done that again. It's back down to $10. 9.8s can be had for $50 to $60. Not sure this is necessarily the book you really want to pursue if you're trying to get the first appearance of those two characters. But it is kind of a fun book, and therefore it does continue to maintain at least a little bit of value. Next at number 4 on the list is another first appearance. This is Batman Arkham Knight number 1, the GameStop variant. And this was all based on the release of information that Arkham Knight was going to make first appearance in Detective Comics 1000. If you've been reading Detective Comics, you know this is a very different Arkham Knight than what the Arkham Knight that came out in Detective Comics 1000 is a very different Arkham Knight than what was in this GameStop variant and was in the game. It's a different character altogether. It's been a very good story. The look is very similar, but it is definitely a different character. Back then, this book was going for $40 to $50. Now it's a $5 book. And the gold variant, which was going for even more back then, is down to a $10 to $15 book. So, and there's almost no slab information on this book at all whatsoever. So that is Batman Arkham Knight number 1, the GameStop variant. At number 3 on the list, we have kind of a hot incentive cover, the first of 2 that we have on this list, and that is Ironheart number 1, and this is a Stephanie Hans variant that was very hot out of the gate. Personally, I like this cover. I don't think it's one of Stephanie Hans' best works. Not to say that it's bad by any means. It's just not one of her better things. But it really caught fire when it first released and was going for $90 to $100. Since then, for 1 in 50, which is double ratio for 1 in 50, that's really good. Since then, this book has fallen all the way back to a $30 to $40 book. I think hasn't been a lot of buzz around the Ironheart series. I don't think a lot of people have been picking it up. The story, I don't know if it's good or bad. I haven't read it, but it hasn't created enough buzz to keep momentum with the series. And I think this cover, as a result, this cover hasn't kept any momentum. I will say there's only been 2 9.8 sales recorded, and they went for $100 and $150 each, which for a $30 to $40 book, $100 for 9.8 to $150 is probably about right if that's what you're willing to pay for the Raw book. Next, we move on to number 2 on the list. Another first appearance and a book in my background, and that is, and this time I have the right one. Well, not really. The Greg Land variant is actually the right one, but I have a good one, and that is Edge of the Spiderverse number 2, the first Spider-Gwen. Then 9.8s we're going for the mid 400s. 9.6s we're going for 300. Now you are still 9.8s are still sitting in that 425 to 475 range. So again, this book spiked all about because of the Spider-Verse movie, and we know that she's probably going to be in the sequel, and we know that she is getting her own kind of spin-off from the Spider-Verse movie as well. So like I said, 9.8s are still going in that mid $400 range, 425 to 475. 9.6s are going anywhere from $200 to $300 for 9.6. The last couple of Raw sales were all like $2 to $250, which I found weird that you could get a 9.6 for as much as people were starting to pay for Raws. But there's not a lot of Raw copies that are in good shape out there. It doesn't seem like a lot of these have been slabbed, at least that are for sale currently. That was Edge of Spider-Verse number 2. The first Spider-Gwen has continued, just like Ultimate Fallout, is basically it peaked around with the anticipation of the movie and has basically held that value. Finally, number 1 on our list is another incentive variant, and this time it's a 1 in 100, and it's the J. Scott Campbell variant of Daredevil 612. This is just a cover. People still love J. Scott Campbell. This is a really nice Daredevil cover. It was pretty hard to find. Daredevil is not a high print book, so 1 in 100 is pretty rare. Then this book was going for 150 to 175 for 1 in 100, which is really good. Not quite that Spider-Gwen good, but really good. Now this book has cooled, but it's still maintaining pretty decent momentum. It's basically going for a ratio of around $100. Occasionally you'll find it a little less than that, but for the most part it's going for around $100. Although I did find it funny, the only 9.8 sale I could find, somebody managed to get for 120. So they did pretty good, getting it already slabbed for 120 when most of these are selling for that right at 100 for raw copies. But that is this week's list. Like I said, we had a bunch of first appearances. Most of them are books, I think, that are worthy investments in terms of Miles Morales, Sabrina, Kamala Khan, Spider-Gwen. Those are pretty good books, and I think will continue to be pretty good books. Arkham Knight, not so much, because it's just a completely different character. And then we had a couple books, that were that option news thing that went falling back because nothing has come of that. So that's the list for this week. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.